Protests are taking place in Delhi over the government's decision to strip Indian-administered Kashmir of its special status. Some protesters are calling for an end to what they describe as a siege of the territory. Many of them are young Kashmiris who have been unable to contact families back home since the government imposed a lockdown on Sunday, which shut down phones and the internet. Now, this disputed Muslim-majority region has been claimed both by India and Pakistan since the partition of British India in 1947. It's a historic Himalayan territory, but it remains divided between an Indian-administered state, as you can see here, and an area administered by Pakistan. So let's bring you right up to date with our correspondents monitoring all the developments from both sides of the border. Asaf Faruqi is in Islamabad, but first let's take you to Delhi and join the BBC's Rahul Tandon, who is there. Rahul, I know you've been out talking to protesters from both sides, actually, of the debate in Delhi. What have they been telling you?
Let's start with the young Kashmiris who took to the streets of Delhi, angry and frustrated. One of them said to me, in the world that we live in where communication is so easy, imagine not being able to speak to your parents for 4 days, have no idea what's going on with your family. That is what the situation is like in Indian-administered Kashmir. When I asked them about whether they felt now more integrated in India, now that that is what the Indian government says is the reason behind removing the autonomy of the state, they said they'd never felt further away from the rulers in Delhi. On the other side of the street were these protesters who support the Indian government. They shouted, Kashmir hamara hai, Kashmir is part of us. And when I spoke to them, they said, look, if Kashmir has to be part of India, then it has to be treated like the rest of India. We as Indians should have the right to be property there. And there symbolizes the whole debate and the whole problem that exists. On the one hand, the public here in India strongly behind their Prime Minister. On the other hand, the Muslims who live in the valley at the moment feeling disconnected, both physically because they have no way to communicate with the rest of India and also with their government in Delhi.
So there's huge anger in Pakistan about this decision, but what can Imran Khan and his government actually do about it? What are the options?
Imran Khan has just gone into a meeting with his top military commander, a National Security Committee meeting. This is the highest level decision-making body when it comes to defense and security measures. This meeting is taking place in the backdrop of pledges from the political leadership as well as military leaders that Pakistan will do whatever it can to help its Kashmiri brothers and will talk to the United Nations and international leaders about what has India done. Simultaneously, a joint session of the parliament is going on where parliamentarians are venting against India. One of the party leaders just said that what India has done, it is almost similar to dismembering or disintegrating Pakistan. So the emotions are high in Pakistan, and it will be clear later in the day what comes out of that National Security Committee meeting.
Well, what does Narendra Modi and his government say to some of these allegations, that it's made a sort of hair-trigger situation even worse, that this is just part of his Hindu nationalist agenda?
I think the message from the government is that, look, the disputed region of Kashmir has been a problem since India gained independence from the British. There has been no solution in sight. It is time for a different method to be used with it. That if Kashmir wants to be part of India, it has to be treated as part of India. And at the moment, Mr. Modi has a huge majority. There is no political figure. There really isn't much opposition to him in this country at the moment. The protest that we saw on the streets of Delhi today was one of the first we've seen. And remember, we're talking here on Wednesday. This decision came on Monday. So I think Mr. Modi really doesn't have too many critics in this country at this point of time. He wants to take a new approach to Kashmir. The problem is that the Kashmiris themselves who live in that area don't seem to be supportive of his actions.
And in Pakistan, there is a sense, I know, Asif, of standing shoulder to shoulder with their Kashmiri brothers. Are people talking about any kind of military action?
Well, there have been demands in the parliament session today. One of the cabinet members just spoke in this specially convened session, and he basically asked Pakistani military just to take to the task, and he wants Pakistan to start a war with India. Similarly, Pakistani Prime Minister last night, he was talking about the whole issue, and he wanted to make a point that this escalation of tensions stemming out of this Indian decision will not be limited to just as a limited skirmish, but it could lead to a conventional war. And Prime Minister also mentioned that this conventional war can very quickly turn into a nuclear conflict.
Asaf Rahul, good to have your thoughts. Thanks for joining us from Islamabad and from Delhi. So huge tensions there.